We're reading the book about gutsy women, the book of gutsy women. And I think this is a great book. I'm going to be reading some of this book. I'm probably going to read all this book to Kennedy. I'm pretty sure. This is going to be our book. So let me do this. I'll call you at the end. Okay? All right. So I liked how it started off because it kind of gave you like a little introductory to like why Hillary and Chelsea started doing that, because when Hillary was growing up, there wasn't a lot of women role models that were doing many things outside the home, even though like her grandma was one of her role models, her mom was her role model, she was looking for something more. And I think it was like a cartoon strip, Woody, that she used to be really into.
Yeah, it was.
But I don't remember the name of it. But, you know, like she had to find her heroes somewhere, and that was one of her heroes. It was like a cartoon strip, and she used to always run home. And then after a while, it was Life magazine, I think they used to get, and Time magazine. And then she would be intrigued by the people that were in Life and Time magazine, because she used to run home to read those stories and make those women her role models. And then her mom always took her to the library, and then she would constantly challenge her to like, you need to read about this person. You know, if that's what you're interested in, you need to read about her. And then that's kind of how she started her little journey with her mom about reading about powerful women that have made a difference in the world. And then she did the same thing with her daughter, where she was constantly encouraging her to figure out what it is she liked or didn't like in the library, and encouraged her to find stories about women that were trendsetters, you know, and doing special things. Uh-oh, everybody frozen.
Chelsea, she wanted to visit that home of Nancy Drews, which was
that's the lady. That's the strip.
It's not a real person.
Uh-huh.
You know, that it's not a real person, so she was all disappointed.
I know, that must have sucked.
The cartoon lady was Brenda Starr. She was a news reporter.
Okay.
Okay.
Everybody froze.
I hear you guys.
Everybody keep freezing.
I know. It's our internet. There's something wrong with our internet today.
My internet was out for a while. I don't know. It was trying to watch the
out. Right, everybody trying to get on classes.
I can't hear you guys.
You can't hear.
It's like I was about to say. I can't hear you.
You can't?
I can hear everybody.
Me?
Somebody says I can't hear you guys.
But I can hear everybody.
I hear
everybody keeps freezing up.
I hear everybody.
Okay, we're on the same page. Me and Davida, we good. Don't worry about it. I try to cut out all the frozen parts, so don't worry about freezing up. I try to cut those out.
Okay.
So I thought it was so. I can read the little things that I have highlighted in every chapter, if that's how you guys want me to do it, or do you guys want to just talk?
Just go on and do it. Do it however you want to do it.
Okay. So this thing that she, one of the things that Hillary said here, which I think was so interesting because it was a biblical verse too, is don't put your lamp under a bushel basket, but use it to light up the world. That was like in the fifth page. I have like things highlighted that they talk about, things that inspired them, you know? And I think this was from a teacher that she had. And in here, they talk a lot about teachers. They talk about how important it is to have a teacher that pushes you to do more, because those are the people that can really, they stimulate your mind when you have a good one. And I think that's one of the things that one of her teachers used to tell her all the time. And then I want to do something splendid before I go into a castle, she vowed. Something heroic or wonderful that won't be forgotten after I've died. I don't know what, but I'm on the watch for it. It means to astonish you all someday. And I feel like every girl does have a dream of becoming married, living in a castle, you know, the picket fence or whatever. But it's important before you have that dream to also try to find your own dream, like your own personal dream, which it could be involved with that or not involved with that. But that a lot of times relates to happiness, I think, at the end of your life. And that was on the bottom of page 5. So then on page 6, I have highlighted, and of course I admire the way Nancy would sometimes do her detective work in sensible pants. I mean, that's just how far back that's going. Like, you know, girls didn't even wear pants. But when she did her detective work, she wore sensible pants.
I never wore pants to school.
You what?
The only pants, the first pants I ever got were like skiing pants.
Oh.
But I never had jeans.
Hey, skiing pants.
I didn't know that. Okay.
No.
I had to wear an apron when I went to school.
We never wore pants to school.
You didn't either, Mildred?
You
Did you
didn't?
wear pants to school, Mildred?
Oh my God.
We never wore pants to
Who
school.
took y'all from a different generation?
Yeah,
No.
that's so
Even
astonishing.
children
I
wear
knew my
pants.
mom was a uniform person because she went to a Catholic school, but I didn't realize, like, didn't you go to a Catholic school, Mom?
No.
I don't know where I got that from. What school you went to? Some German school.
That was an option when I went to the gymnasium.
Oh, good. It's so
The
good.
rest were too much for me.
Yeah, I just remember you said like you had like these experiences with nuns in your school. So I thought for some reason it was a Catholic school, but I didn't realize like a lot of nuns back in the day did have callings outside of church to do work.
My dear.
What was yours, Miss Mildred? Was it religion or you just couldn't?
No, that was Alton School District.
I believe it.
I was raised, and I grew up in Alton. And in Alton, the girls did not wear pants to school. The only time we had on anything that resembled a pants was we wore a jumpsuit for PE.
Yeah.
All white one-piece jumpsuit all the way through grade school. And then when we got to Alton High, we wore red pants and a gray and red shirt. Yeah, but we could not wear pants.
But I think that's just how it was in our parents' generation.
We had a dress code.
Yeah, I think that's just how it was. Like when we went to Alton High School, the dress code was don't show your belly button. I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna plan on showing that anyway.
When I went to school, it was don't show your knees. Your skirt had to be touching
school
your
said
knee.
don't show your neck. No.
And the teacher stood in the doorway. The teacher stood in the doorway and looked at every girl that walked in the classroom. And if she felt your skirt or dress was too short, you were sent to the principal's office.
That's right. That's how it was. That's why, like, the school code is probably a joke to a lot of older people because they're like, do you even have a school code? Just wear anything to school. Yeah.
I know, because we didn't wear anything to school.
Yeah, I know you didn't.
We dressed decently. Yeah.
I was in an all-girls school. That's perhaps why you thought I was in a Catholic school. No, it was an all-girls school.
Where Mom G was
the
in.
first 5 years elementary school, it was mixed, and then I went to gymnasium, which is the school that prepares you for the university. That was all girls.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's nice to go to all the girls school because you can always just focus on your schoolwork instead of like the distractions of going to school. Because a lot of girls in high school just thinking about their boyfriends.
Even more catty. They gonna be even more catty.
Probably.
All girls, no.
Anyway, I had that highlighted just because I thought that would create a dialogue for us. Because I'm like, I bet you everybody's going to have a different idea of this sensible pants thing. I was right.
Yes.
And then it says, and then she said, but she reassured me that what was real and important about Nancy was her curiosity, unapologetical smarts, and her doggedness. And this is the red part where Chelsea's talking, because this is where she wanted to find her, like, let's go visit her home. Isn't that what you were talking about, Mom?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, yeah.
Yeah. And then and then it kind of goes into a little spiel about where Hillary's like, you know, like at first when she was in school, the only like women that were really powerful were like Greek goddesses and those tales from back then, because there was women there that had like roles that were powerful and leadership and enduring. And when she used to play with her friends, she used to say like she would always try to take on that leadership role. Like, I know what we're doing. Like, we're gonna build this clubhouse and throw some mud pies at these boys. That's what I did. I don't know what she did. My mom knows I did that. I did that with my brothers. So then on page 7, I had highlighted, you know, like this is Chelsea's talking. She was into like the Greek people like Cleopatra, Nefertiti. I don't know how to say some of these names, Mom. Do you know?
Nefertiti.
Nefertiti. Okay. Because I knew I wasn't saying it right. I'm like, I'm not saying this name right. But it just goes to show like how hard it was at one point to find women role models that were written about in a book that you could read about and see them as like the people that you wanted to follow in life. Because so many women were just stay-at-home moms, which I'm not saying anything about the stay-at-home mom. That job is super challenging. I'm just saying people wanted to, there were women that were ready to do more than that. And they didn't have anybody to look at that was doing more than that. So they had to create that path. And that's what I like about this book. Like, I'm so interested in people that find a way when there's no role model. That is crazy.
Yeah, there are a lot of firsts in this book.
Yeah, so that was what was so interesting to me. Like, that's what kept me wanting to read it when I was reading it, you know, that I like that part of the book. Okay, so then the next thing I have highlighted is on page 8. And that's when she started reading about Joan of Arc. And this, I think, is Hillary, or is this, this is Chelsea. So it was like the Egyptian goddesses, or, you know, the Egyptian people that were her leaders. Then there was this Joan of Arc that she was into. She had limited resources too, to some extent. Get your spoon if you need a spoon. And then they talk about this feminine mystique. Go ahead, Mom.
She wanted to be Joan of Arc at Halloween. Remember?
Yeah. And then like on page 8 where Hillary starts, it talks about the feminine mystique, a book of Betty Friedman published in 1963, which I guess was like their thing that they went off of, all those young women that wanted to do something more, that were reading literature. What did you get from that, Mom? I don't know. I didn't read any of these books, so I have no idea. That's why I'm like, I don't know. What did you guys say?
The women movement, you know, to kind of empower you, give you some ideas.
But this woman she was not satisfied being a stay-at-home mom.
No.
And she felt guilty because she wasn't satisfied, because that was the role that the woman played back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. She didn't want to be a stay-home full-time mama. She wanted to get out and do stuff.
And then I like the part in the book on page 10 where it says, my friends have been an inspiration. My friends have provided support, community, shared love, and adventures. They too have been an important source of inspiration as women, friends, leaders, professionals, mothers, and citizens. And I think this is kind of cool because at the end of the day, like your other women friends, they help build you up so much. They help you out in every way possible. Like my mom helped me to get my career going. But on top of my mom helping me, it was Miko that helped me help watch Torsten. There was like so many women that were my friends that helped me get to a better place than where I used to be. And without them, I wouldn't have got there, because I also had a child that I needed help with. And it seems like only other women with kids were helping me when I needed help, you know what I mean, to get to this better place. So then on the bottom, so who's Dorothy? Is that her grandma, Mom?
Dorothy, yeah, I think her mother's mother.
Yeah, so Dorothy refused at an age not much older than I was to give up on herself or on her friends. And Dorothy was her grandma that started this library adventure with her, this reading adventure with her.
She started it with Hillary first.
Yeah, she did with Hillary first. And then there was the other grandma who she challenged to stop smoking for her, was it her 8th birthday or 10th birthday or something like that? And she always talks about her too. She's like, I may have not had these adventures with her, but she constantly talked to me about how hard it was to give this thing up that she was giving up for me, which I think at the end made Hillary so much wiser to the hardship of addiction, and of giving something up. Like, it's not just like, yeah, I'm going to give it up. It actually is so hard to give things up in life.
Right.
And I think it kind of helps, because when Hillary became a public figure and started doing all these things, in reality, it was like she was constantly giving up cigarettes, because that was so hard, because it's so hard to be in the public eye and constantly have to give up a part of yourself to try to, give more to the nation or give more to whatever it is that you're doing, So I think like that grandma really helped her with that. It made her a better person in the world, in the real world, because she continuously shared what that felt like. And it gave her like an insight to how she was feeling when she had to give things up later on in life, or when she had to take criticism on, or anything like that. Like, I kept thinking that when she said that, because she said that lady, even though she didn't with this grandma go to all these libraries and whatever else, that thing made her really close to her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That inspired her more than anything else. Grandma Ginger.
Oh, and her name was Ginger.
Yeah.
Ginger never hid how hard it was for her to give up her couple packs a day habit. As inspiring as I was by Meg Random, Ginger inspired me more than anyone else. That says that there on the bottom. I think you just said that. I'm sorry, Mom.
Yeah.
So then that kind of takes us right into Harriet Tubman. So I think Harriet Tubman, I mean, I feel like she should be on the $20 bill, period.
I think she should be on something.
Yeah, she should be on the $20 bill. She's done so much for this nation. She's carried the weight and the burden of people. I can't explain how she did what she did. So, and I know, and I feel like if Donald Trump gets out of the White House, she will get on the $20 bill, because she was supposed to get on there before he got in the office.
A long time ago.
Yeah. So to me, Harriet Tubman, like, she is like the ultimate American hero, because she stands for what America's all about taking yourself from one situation into another situation and just believing in God and having faith and all those things that people came to America for. Like, she exhibits that to me. I don't know what she exhibits to you guys, but to me, I just, like, she's like, God told me to do this and she did it. I'm like, wow, okay, But isn't that her story?
Yeah, she took so many risks for freedom for other people. I mean, she kept going back and getting people.
But I like how it started out. She did not know how to read. She had a piece of paper of the people she was supposed to meet that were supposed to help her. So you can't tell me that she really wasn't following her purpose and her life in God, because she could have been in anybody's hand when she opened up that piece of paper. She did not know how to read. And every time she went somewhere and she opened up that piece of paper, it was the right person. You know what I mean? To give her to the right next place, to take her to the right next place. Mm-hmm. She did learn how to read. She educated herself completely, But at the beginning of her journey, that was seriously like blind faith, because I don't know how else she could have done that.
Because it was
That was
illegal for
Well,
black people
it
to
probably
learn to
was.
read.
It probably was a good thing that she did know how to read, because they had all those wanted posters all over the place for her.
They
If she
did.
would have realized how
Yeah,
much danger her life was in, they had $40,000
County.
bonds on her head.
Uh-huh.
If she could have read those, I mean,
Yeah.
that probably would have put some fear in her. But with her not being able to read, she didn't have the fear to do what she had to do. Plus, she heard the voice of God directing her.
And I feel like, I feel like I'm glad they started off with this story, because number one, I want her to be on the $20 bill. Number two, she is super inspiring. And I just feel like when you read her story and you see how she just continuously did things for people, for her family, how she kept going back for her family, how she tried to go back for her husband, but he had another woman. And she just kept going on and on. Like, I would have been like, what?
But
they thought
I can do without
she
him.
was dead.
Yeah. Oh, we all froze up.
That guy
She
jumped off that
froze
bridge.
She had a big smile.
When she jumped off the bridge, she shouldn't have survived.
Yeah.
So he took that back and told him she was dead. So that's why the husband remarried, because he thought she was dead. But it wasn't meant for them to be together anyway.
Yeah, because it probably would have interfered with her mission in life, because her purpose was so much greater.
But remember, she left him because he was a free slave, and she didn't want him to lose his freedom going with her.
Yes.
So she left him behind so he could stay free.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was very unselfish of her.
Yeah, that was a perfect person to start off with me. That made me really interested in the book. But again, I'm not a big history buff. It was hard for me to get going, but then once I did get going, I really enjoyed it. It was just that this week, so many things happened. I couldn't finish up the last 20 pages, but I definitely enjoyed it, and I know I will catch up with the other 20 pages. But does anybody want to read her quotes on page 15 and on page 16 in red?
Yeah, I was
a conductor
for 8 years, and I can say what most conductors can say: I never ran my train off the tracks, and I never lost a passenger. Yeah.
Mildred, do you want to read the other one?
Tubman never waited for a man to affirm her. Tubman reveled in defying men, defying governments, defying slavery, defying Confederate armies and slave catchers who put a $40,000 bounty on her head. This Black woman, who stood 5 feet tall, was up.
Aww.
And she thinking real hard.
Yeah. And then the only other thing that I was going to read about her is on page 17. And it starts, if you hear the dogs, keep going. If you see a torch in the woods, keep going. If they're shooting after you, keep going. Don't ever stop. Keep going. If you want to taste freedom, keep going. Even if it's the darkest moment that there is, what we all must do is keep going. And I kind of like that, because there's so many times in all our lives that we just don't want to keep going. So even though this is so extreme, I can't compare my life to that at all. That is what we all have to do. We just have to keep going every day. So yes. I love that first. They really got me with this first story. Then they really got me with the ballerinas too.
I like the fact that Hillary was able to get the funds to restore her house.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
She never got paid for her military duties.
Yes,
Then
and I think that was so
all,
interesting.
no women got paid in World War One or so.
That
They
is some
first
bull crap. I know.
Yeah. Yeah, she should have got widow's benefits, but she didn't.
She didn't get anything. Yeah. And again, that just shows true to her character. She just did the things that she felt like she was meant to do in life, even if there wasn't an immediate reward for her to be seen, because she knew that was what she was supposed to do. So then the next one is these ballerinas. So for me, I think there's a couple of these ballerinas. So I'm just so the one that I really want to talk about is Maria Tlachief. She's the Indian one. And Virginia Johnson. She's the African-American one.
Yeah.
And, and of course, the other two are very important too, because those two were the trendsetters, and like, it's not just going to be a straight line ballerina. Let's incorporate all these other dances into being ballerinas. Let's try to generate our own little thing, which is what women never did. Women always did the dances the way they were supposed to do. And these other two women, they were like, no, this is my art. I'm going to do it the way I want to. I'm going to have children and not marry my man. They just were doing stuff their way. and they had to do what they had to do to set the way for other women to do that too. But I think they're so interesting because they're like the first women that created their own art in an art form, because that was really only done by men. So I really like the chief lady, because they try to tell her, you should change your name to a Russian sounding name so that people will come see you. And she was like, no, like, I'm not changing my name to sound Russian. I'm an Indian person. I'm going to look Indian. I'm going to dance this interpretive dance. And I'm going to be me. And I thought that was really cool, because there's such a pressure on everyone in whatever genre you're in to be those people that they think are trendsetters, even though you can be your own trendsetter.
Right.
And then the other one is Johnson. And I feel like if she wouldn't have done that, there wouldn't be all these black ballerinas now, because she was that first black ballerina that got that spotlight, that created dance, and made it more interesting, and kind of did her own little art form too. And I'm not even going to pretend. I am not a ballerina. I don't know anything about ballerinas. I didn't look good in a tutu. I tried it one time. Didn't work for me. But I think these women are so commendable. It is so interesting,
Yes.
Because they didn't do it. They didn't even have the right to do it. They didn't have the right to change the art form, but they did it anyway. That's what makes them so interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys want to comment on that, we can, or we can go on to the next little group of women, because the next one is Helen Keller, and I think she's super duper interesting too.
Yeah. That had to be God influence for her to be able to do that.
Yeah. To be able to do anything. You cannot hear, you cannot see, you cannot speak. How do you communicate to the world? And then on top of it, how do you communicate and give back so abundantly to all these other causes when you are at a disadvantage your whole life yourself?
Right.
And remember the day that her school teacher came to her, she said that was her birthday, because that was the day that she had a birth, because that person was allowing her to express herself, to learn, to be something besides this person in the dark.
Yep.
I was like, wow. And then people used to always belittle her because they said it was just other people telling her information. She wasn't making her own mind up about it because she had her interpreters. I'm like, come on, man. These people don't need Helen Keller. If they're that smart, they can just do it without her. But it actually was her mind that created all those things. So I have a whole bunch of stuff highlighted for her.
It was okay when she talked about politics or anything like this. Then they kind of put her down.
Yeah.
They sent the FBI.
And she's
after
very
her
involved in
and
politics and rights and civil rights.
Mm-hmm.
So I have.
She made that 40,000-mile tour through Asia, which 75. I don't think I would have the energy to do that.
No, the more I read about her, the more I was like, man, there's so many things I didn't really know about Helen Keller, even though I've seen little series on her. The book, this little thing right here told me so much more about her though, you know? So I'll definitely, like, if you're interested in Helen Keller, you need to read this little 4-page thing about her because you will be super duper happy. And then the one thing that I like that she said, the inferior to women is made by man, she argues. Just stating the obvious, like a woman is not inferior to a man. Men just state it that way, and that's why people portray it that way, but we really are equal to them. So I don't know, I just think her whole story is so interesting.
Yes.
I mean, we'd have to read the whole thing, but I mean, none to say like she did so many things for people with special needs. She did so many things with people of color. She did so many things for women. She did so many things for people in just various regions of the world that needed help, that were underrepresented. She was that person that went everywhere to help everyone. So her story is super duper interesting. It's way beyond like somebody signing in her hand and she's signing back, telling them what to write down. Like this woman, her mind is super interesting.
Yeah.
So, you know, like if you guys want to add something, you definitely can.
On page 28, where she said, I like frank debate, and I do not object to harsh criticism, so long as I'm treated like a human being with a mind of her own.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then the next one is Margaret Chase Smith. And I feel like almost like, was this Hillary's role model to get into politics? Because she was the first woman that ran for a presidency, that had a Senate seat, and that had like a House seat before she had a Senate seat. Does that sound right, Mom? I'm not reading this. I'm just thinking she was the first in all those areas. And of course it was called the widow something, because this is what happened to women whose husbands died, who then took over because they helped their husbands out so much anyway. It was
widow's mandate.
Okay, yeah, so it was a widow's mandate, but she actually, just like how she helped promote her husband, that skill of promoting her husband is the skill that she needed to promote herself as well. And her husband even said on his deathbed, like I think a week before he died, if anything happens to me, my wife knows exactly what needs to be done. Let her do it. Okay. So all in all, we think this is a good book. It actually would take us hours to go through the first 100 pages. Because as you see, we only talked about 3 little sections and we talked about it for 40 minutes, you know. Every little story I think is super interesting and inspiring. I like how Hillary tells her story and then how Chelsea tells her story, because they're coming from 2 different generations. Just like how we were talking about a dress code for school. Me and Davida are from one generation and my moms are from another generation. So it's interesting to hear those differences. What did you think, Davida?
I just got dizzy. What you say?
What'd you think about
I have to take me a minute real quick. In different generation, yeah, we didn't go through the not being able to wear pants and whatnot. It was up to you. So we had a little more freedom when it came to that. So we grew up differently, and no all girls school for me, period.
I think like with me and Davida, we both went to Alton High School. You went to Alton High School, didn't you, Davida?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we already were going to school at a time when we did have women role models that were doing things, but our parents went at a time where they had very few women role models. So just imagine, like in those 20, 30 years.
My moms were at home, were not really working, you know. Mariana was secretly working because my dad didn't want her to work. You know, she only made appointments when she knew he was out of town or whatever else.
Because my grandma used to do hair. She did laundry too for people, and then she did hair. She had 2 little side gigs.
the vice Oma, she was only at home. She wasn't outside of the house, you know. So, and
Yeah.
Oma Liane, yeah, she always hassled. She
I
was
think
working time
Liana was like our
somewhere.
trendsetter in that generation because she was doing everything she wanted to do. She didn't give a damn.
Yeah.
What about your family?
was
How
born
were the women in your family, Davida?
My grandma, she never worked, but I never known her to work. I don't know if she worked in her younger days, but she had like 12, 13 kids. So it was pretty much, I don't know. They pretty much had to fend for themselves. It was a small town. Some of them got away from there. Some of them still there. It's going to be a generational curse for centuries to come. You know, I just went to her funeral 2 months ago. So, you know, that side of the family. As far as my mom's mother, I never knew her. So I don't know no stories or nothing about that.
Yeah. So, ooh, where'd my mom go?
Yeah, my mom disappeared.
I don't know where she went. So I think that is like so interesting because even though me and my mom are like 20 some years apart, there's such a difference there. So I was born in 74 and my mom was born in 54. And just in that time period, it was such a difference in what women were doing or not doing or able to do, or really, Davida, sometimes I feel like what women were actually getting recognition for doing, because so many women were doing things behind men.
Yes.
And they were just getting the recognition for it. I mean, behind every great man is a woman, whether that's his wife, his secretary, or the person helping him out. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yes.
come on. There's no, why do you think when BET CEO retired, he gave it to his secretary? Because she was that woman that knew everything about the business, that was helping him out 100, you know what I mean? That, because there's always that woman. It doesn't have to be your wife or somebody. There's always somebody that is of a female gender that is actually getting things going for you, because that's just, we're just good. We're just as good at it as men are, you know?
Yeah.
But that's what I like about this book, is that it's pointing that out, you know, and it's expressing that in such a nice way. So my mom got disconnected, but she's been having internet problem all day. And then my other mom, she just texted me and she said that she can't log in. Me and Davida are going to end it with you guys. We think this is a great book, but it is a history book. So if you have a hard time getting into history, you'll have a hard time getting into it. But I think if you're like a sentimental and inspiring person, once you start reading it, you'll be like, wow, because that's how I am. First, I'm like, oh gosh, history. And then I'm like, ooh, it's so inspiring. And then I'm crying and I'm reading it. And then I'm getting into it. You know what I mean? What did you think, Davida?
I think of it like history right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So for the book, I think it's great.
Book reports on the first chapters. I did book reports on the women. So I did Harriet Tubman, Helen Keller. I did book reports on them. So I did kind of know a little bit about those women, you know. So I did have the opportunity to kind of go out and explore and write about some courageous women when I grew up in school.
Yeah. So I would say the book, out of 5, I'd say it's a 4, because not everybody can read it, honestly. I had a hard time getting into it because I'm not a history buff, but I did enjoy it once I started reading it. And I do like being informed, which is what kept me wanting to read more of it, because I'm like, ooh, I want to read more about the next woman. I want to read more about the next, like once I got into it, that's kind of what it was for me. But, you know, next week we'll come at you with another 100 pages. And obvious, just like this week, we ain't going to cover all of it. It's just going to be some of it, because the women that we do cover, they're just so awesome. It's going to take 30 minutes a person, really. Get this book and read it yourself. I think it's a great book to read with. I'm going to read it with my granddaughter. I'm not giving this book away. I'm going to read it with her to keep and get her inspired. She's inspired anyway, but you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I'm going to do with my book. What do you feel about your book?
I don't know. I probably give it to Simone. You know, She got some college stuff. Give her a little more inspiration to see what she do beyond college.
Yeah. I definitely think this is a super inspiring book. Yeah. Especially if you're a woman, or I would say if you're somebody that's being raised by a woman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
So we are going to let you guys go. I would rate it like a 4 out of 5 so far. What would you rate it?
Yeah, I say a 4 as well. It's getting there for me too.
Yeah. So we'll check up with you guys in 2 weeks, and we're going to let you go. I'm going to stop recording.